Julianne Nicholson, I'm so thrilled to talk to you about Mare of Easttown and your performance as Laurie in it. It was riveting, just one word, riveting. And I've got to start at the end, which is really the scene in the car with Kate Winslet, with Mare of Easttown, after she's arrested your son for this murder. And I know, my understanding is you filmed this fairly early on in the shoot, didn't you?
Yes, if you consider the pandemic and the halt that we took and then coming back, yes, it was still pretty early on that we filmed that scene.
Yeah, and I know you and Kate Winslet have a personal friendship that dates back a long time, and so it kind of mirrors that of Mare. And didn't she was the one that approached you with the role?
She did, yes. I've known Kate for a long time, and she sort of seems to show up at all these important events in my life, like my wedding and right after my son was born. And yeah, we've been around the place together. And she called, I hadn't seen her though in about 10 years. I think the last time I saw her was like passing in a hallway at the Toronto Film Festival. So I was thrilled to hear from her. And I've been such a fan of hers as an actress for so many years, long before I knew her, that actually one of my aunts reminded me that it had been one of my like early goals in my career. Like that was like, you know, that would be the sort of pinnacle of success for me if I would get to work with her specifically. And it's so nice when you have family to remind you of these things, actually. My Aunt Maureen. But she called me and said, I'm doing this show. It's incredible. I'm going to send you the first 6 episodes. There's the part of my best friend, Laurie, and you must do it. Trust me. And I was like, okay. So of course, you know, her trust, she's got a pretty good track record. So I read them and I did think the writing was incredible. Brad just created such a specific and interesting world that I didn't really know about. I'm familiar with that type of place, being from a suburb of Boston, but I thought they were beautiful, and to work with her and Brad and on HBO again was an exciting
right after The Outsider. But what's so interesting is you got the 6 episodes, but not that 7th episode, which so you read the 6, and I think you said, yes, this is for me. So who did you think had done it before reading the 7th episode?
I guess I probably thought it was one of the brothers at that point. You know, like the audience, with every script that I finished, I was pretty sure I knew who it was. But then there was so much there that at the end of every script, I felt like, okay, clearly I got that wrong. What's next? I don't know what's coming. And that was part of the thrill for me reading along.
So then
one of the brothers, they definitely seemed guilty, some suspect from the beginning.
Well, except that also maybe you're immune to social media, but there was a lot of chatter that Laurie had done it there before the 7th episode.
Yeah, I had friends and family texting me after the 6th episode saying like, well, I had two versions. One was, it's not you, is it? Tell me it's not you. And the other one's being like, I hope it's Laurie. I hope it's Laurie. So yeah, people definitely felt invested in one, who the killer was, and also knowing who the killer was, or guessing who the killer was.
So you mentioned that you're mother of a son. I think he's a little bit younger than Ryan, but that notion of this mother and father doing anything they can to protect their child. But Mare sort of is also the connection, the mother, the son. We see, you know, it's these 2 parallel tracks. So going back to that scene in the car, you've got this friendship with Kate Winslet, which I think is mirrored in the friendship between Laurie and Mare. But how do you prepare for a scene like that as an actor? Because there has to be this frostiness, this iciness between these friends.
It's very hard. I don't know how to like prepare for a scene like that, other than hopefully you really know the character that you're playing. Imagination. I trust Kate so deeply as a person and as an actor that I knew whatever was going to happen, that I was in a safe place. The writing was there, so it told me, you know, how she was feeling But then I don't think we spoke to each other that night. We filmed it. It was the end of a long week, Friday night, ice cold. And though I remembered after, I think sort of one time we were going to go again, and I felt like, how do you, you have to film it a few times. So how do you change it? How do you make it alive? How do you try to stay present moment to moment when you're doing it again and again? And I think I just gave Kate a big hug, and just feeling that, just that connection and what that friendship is. So then you feel the loss of it was really helpful.
Right. And you mentioned the pandemic, because a lot of it, the shooting happened before, but the scenes in the Ross house, didn't most of those get filmed when you resumed production?
Yes.
So
yes.
So the scene with Cameron, with Ryan, when he comes home and says she knows, that's filmed months after you've done the scene in the car then?
It's filmed months after the scene in the car, but it was, I believe, pre-pandemic.
Okay.
So there was still definitely a few months, because we broke for Christmas. And so I think we filmed that actually in March, right before we shut down. And the Mare scene, I think, was before Christmas. The car scene, I think, was before Christmas.
So, but that scene with Ryan, with this wonderful young actor, Cameron, it's so special, because he's sort of in that, not a boy, but not a young man yet. And yet there he is coming home to his mommy, and it's just so.
Oh, I know. We actually did an interview last week. I think EW wanted to talk to Cameron, and he and his mom reached out to me and said, would you do the interview together? Because he would feel that would make him feel more comfortable. And to hear him talking about like that scene and Ryan's mom not being able to help her, it was like so moving. And it's such an upsetting idea. As you say, he's like 1 foot in boyhood and 1 foot in young manhood, and he still just wants to, like, this is how I feel lucky that I have a son a similar age, because I could draw on that. And my son, he's like 5'8" now, but he still wants to sit on my lap. So he sits on my lap, and it's like I'm holding a man, but he's still my little boy. And that was sort of the heartbreaking thing, one of the heartbreaking things about it.
And you talked about, and it is such a beautiful script by Brad Inglesby, but I think at the very last scene, between Laurie and Mare, and there's so little dialogue, and yet the two of you, these actresses, you're able to say so much, the way she comes in and the looks. And when did you film that scene, and what was it like to film something like that, where it is sort of resting on your shoulders and hers, to kind of wrap the story out?
We filmed that, I believe, in March also. So what we thought was sort of, halfway through, I guess. And it's daunting, because the whole season is sort of leading up to, a few moments, but that's definitely one of them. And so the weight of it does feel scary, because you want to do it justice. But I think it's such a brave writer that has written his characters so deeply and multi-layered, that he trusts that the characters are there and that he's hired the right people to play them. And I think just knowing all that Laurie had been through,
right,
I just wanted to do that justice and the most honest way that I could.
Well, you had mentioned about the audience building, and every week in and week out, the traditional way of looking at a show rather than the binging, which I think added to it, because they
100%.
Yeah,
definitely.
But what I was so relieved, though, with that final scene, to think, if there's a season 2, it's good. Laurie's going to be in it, because her and Mare are back on track.
Yeah.
So it was really wonderful to see.
Oh, that's so nice. I think it was a great relief to a lot of people that they could find their way back to each other.
Yeah. One of the things that people have been talking about is the accent, that Delco accent. And I think Suzanne Sulby was your dialect coach.
Yeah.
Now, and I believe she was on set a lot of the time.
Every day.
Yeah.
And every scene I filmed, she was there.
So I couldn't help but think, I remember when a co-star of yours from a previous film, Meryl Streep, August Osage County, once talking about dialects, the queen of dialects, and saying the one time she had trouble was dancing at Lunasa, an Irish accent, and the dialect coach was there, and he would come over and say, well, could you maybe do it a little like this or that? So what, for you as the actor, is it daunting having her there? Is it a safety net? Where did you?
For me, it's a safety net having the dialect person there. I guess it would also depend on who that person was.
Right.
But Suzanne was very, very, very good at her job, very thorough in the run up to actual filming. And she was also very sensitive to, if it didn't feel like the right moment to come in, she wouldn't. So I felt like I had an extra pair of ears on it, which for me was a relief.
Yeah. And I know with the having to shut down and then start again, I know that they had a couple, it was kind of they turned that lemons into lemonade because they kind of did a cut, an edit, and kind of rejiggered the story a little bit here and there, and scenes got changed, they got cut. Was there anything that changed for you, for Laurie? Was there scenes that didn't happen because of the pandemic?
Yeah, there were a few scenes that were lost along the way. Also because they did the edit, but also just COVID rules just wouldn't allow for, you couldn't shoot as many hours as you normally could. You couldn't change locations in a day. So there were so many rules around what you just could and could not do that we'd still be filming right now, probably, if we were allowed to do everything that was written. But also I think it's good because they were able to sort of streamline it. And sometimes scenes are written and you find you don't actually need them in the storytelling. There was a couple of scenes there was a scene where John and I went to visit Kenny in jail, and he asked us to consider adopting DJ. And there was a scene right after that where Laurie and John are in a car going home together talking about that. And those are the two that I kind of miss. I wish that we would have been able to do, but clearly, I haven't watched the show, but it seems like the show worked without them, so we're okay.
Yeah, it's definitely something you should think about. Why? No, what I'm interested in that. So you said you haven't watched it. Do you need to sort of take a little bit of time away from something before you'll go back and look at it, or will you even look at it?
It's a funny thing. Like I can't put my finger on it, but some I feel comfortable watching and some I don't. And I don't know if it's just because for this one, what Laurie ultimately has to go through, I feel like I just don't want to watch that.
Right.
Kate's all the time like, you have to watch it. You must watch the show, because she's been my biggest supporter and fan and just wants, but it's a complicated thing. I don't know if you have that, even seeing yourself on video or seeing a picture of yourself, or God forbid hearing your voice. It's sometimes it's better for me just to sort of enjoy other people having the experience of it, and I feel like that way only disappointment lies, quite honestly.
Well, it's refreshing to hear, but it is, I would say, so you haven't, but you mentioned your husband's an actor. Did he watch it? He
hasn't watched it yet because we're always together. So, but he is, I think now, he's also bombarded with texts and emails from people that he knows about it, and about particularly episode 7 and my part and that. So he's going to watch it.
Speaking of always being together, I think again, the Lemons into Lemonade, didn't the two of you and your children make a short film that's going to be at Tribeca?
Gosh, you're very good at doing your homework. Yes, we did. We made this sort of quarantine movie. Maven Pictures approached us very early on and said, we're making this movie. We're approaching different families, to basically, they sent us a box of all this, like an iPhone 11 and slates and microphones and everything. And we thought, oh, this is going to be fun. And fun was the last thing that it was. In hindsight, like, we're happy that we did it, but it was just us doing every last thing. And we are not technically savvy people. Plus, we have an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old when we filmed it. And like, bless them, they were such champs, but like, it was challenging.
So did either of them have the bug now? Are they creative?
Hell no. It was the best thing we could have done. No, they're like, they were like, how much are we going to get paid? Can I buy a horse? Like it was more like about that than. And
having to do something over more than one.
Yes. Well, you know what? Every time the slate clicked in front of their face, they lost it. Thought it was hilarious. So it was just like it, and we were on a very strict like time thing. It wasn't like we could make it as we wanted and like just feel the joy and see what happens. It was like, no, you have to do this by a certain time so that you can send it to them to download the file so that it could get to the editor, because there were all these families that would be doing it after us. And then like, if Jonathan and I got mad, then they'd get like what my sister and I called church giggles. So then they'd be giggling because they were uncomfortable and they were in trouble, but then they couldn't stop laughing. Right. That should have been the movie, actually. The making of the movie should have been the movie, but alas, we don't have enough skill for that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I thank you for taking a little time to talk to us, because it's just, it really was one of those sort of beautiful performances by you, and the whole cast. I mean, there's so many people. What I really loved about it was, I know this one, and you sort of go and look that one up or this one. It was so beautifully cast.
Avi Kaufman is a wonderful casting director. She lives in New York, and I've known her basically for like 25 years, since very early on in my career. She was always one of the ones like, you got to get Avi on your side. Yeah. And so to sort of come full circle with her has been very special also. Yeah. She's amazing.
The whole thing is special. And like I said, I hope Brad comes up with an idea for a second season, because you spend so much time perfecting that accent. One of my colleagues went to school down there and said everyone nailed it.
Great.
So, and it filmed on location. I think it really resonated with people from that neck of the woods. So congratulations.
I saw this. Thank you. Someone sent me this a picture of a tweet or an Instagram post or something from Sunday night. And someone just wrote, I wonder what Mare's doing tonight. Because Sunday was the first Sunday night in 7-8 weeks, whatever it was, that you couldn't hang out with Mare that night.
Well, what Laurie's doing is being beyond heroic. I must actually make mention of that scene with DJ in the doctor's office. Just again, so there's so much acting done with no dialogue by you, and it's extraordinary to watch, to see everything that's going. I know everything that's going on in her mind because of how you conveyed it.
I love that scene. And it's actually a scene that we talked about a lot before we even got started filming, because the question of would Laurie take the child? What does that feel like? And I love that they could have that private moment in the doctor's office, because so much of a series, it's not the private moments, it's the interactions, it's like telling the story. And so to have that where you could see someone just sit for a minute and have the feelings that are not the heroic feelings, was really valuable, I think. So I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again.